Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to another episode of the No Fluff MSP Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Tahir Hamed, and I've got a frequent flyer with me, Steve Young. What's up, man? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Always love coming on the No Fluff podcast, man. So let's have a good day.
We did a calendar for our VIP people that came to ScaleCon, and on I think it's October, we did a super fluffy MSP marketing podcast, and it's like me and Steven in clouds wearing PJs. Everything's fluffy.
Mr. October over here.
Sometimes we get a little fluffy, but today will not be that.
All right.
So, just kind of setting the stage as to what we're doing today. Steven Young, it's super cool. The way I think of Steven is kind of like the sales version of me. I went the marketing path, and then Steve took the sales path, and now we're kind of like, cool, we have these really cool skills we can work together on. And so it's just been cool seeing him really dive into things that I've never even really put that much thought to, and have not dove in enough. So I'm just excited to have Steve on today. We're going to be talking all about sales qualification and discovery, which is a super important topic. And I do have some specific examples, throughout the podcast of how it's bit me in the butt and, success by making changes. But Steve, if you want to go ahead and start things off, why is that process? Like, everybody, when they think of sales, they're like, okay, I want to get the lead. I want to close. I want to say the right things to close the lead. But why is the kind of discovery and qualification process so important in the MSP sales journey?
Yeah, very good question. And first of all, like you just said, I love that you said that I'm the sales version of you. I love that. I love that when you got up on ScaleCon, the stage, and told the story of how we came about, how we met, and you gave me the high squeaky voice, and it was so funny. I was like, son of a mother, you got to just gave me the squeaky voice and everything, but it's so true. And to give people a little bit of context, I remember when we had a conversation in Vegas at I think it was the very first MSP camp meetings, and we were sitting there and just talking about, imagine if you did a sales version of what MSP camp is and really defined this thing and built it out. And it's funny that we're sitting here talking about it now after the years it's been. So a very cool full circle moment. But
it is cool, especially because you're doing it. It's so freaking cool. And if I had to put my chips on anybody, like I've said many times, when it comes to the sales side of the MSP world, man, I would go all in on betting on you. Your shit. I think the most important thing is you're passionate about learning. You're constantly telling me new stuff. I'm like, man, he is so fired up about the sales process. And most people are just not. They don't have that same level of hunger anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Or just attention to detail. That's a little bit how my mind works. I'm sure it's very similar to yours, but not to side skirt your question. Qualification and discovery. Very, very political start. But no, I mean, qualification and discovery. Why is it so important? Is because it mitigates so much frustration and issues downstream. And so people think of qualification and discovery as this step in a sales process. And I think that's the biggest problem that people typically have, is they think of it as this one-time step. Qualification, for the most part, it's that the barrier to entry, the budget, authority, need, timeline, those types of things. It's the high level, should I be having this conversation? It's your filter or your gatekeeper for your calendar. Discovery, though, is not a step, it's a constant. And it should be done all throughout your process. And just think of it logically. If somebody says they have pain on the first meeting and then they say it on the fourth meeting, why don't we address it the same way and go deeper into that problem to elicit emotion and move the sales process forward? And so people think of it as okay, so on the first time appointment, qualification, discovery, and then my second, they just abandon it. And then you get downstream and you forgot maybe a question about timing. And then you get we're not ready to move forward. Our contract expires in, January 1st. And you finished your entire process in October or September because you didn't ask the question. And so it really just helps you map the process and gives you a sense of security that when you get to the end of a sales process is going to go in your favor because you didn't leave any stone unturned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly why it's so important. I think you just nailed it. I guess I probably should have started if we think about like somebody that doesn't even know what that means, like
Yeah, like
qualification
define
discovery.
it. Like, what are we even talking about
Yeah,
here?
like what are we talking
Yeah.
about? Like, what is it? You know, like what some people are just like, well, I just meet with them and I try them sell them my shit. It's like, well, okay, well, what is qualification discovery for like first
Yeah.
principles?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It would be nice if we could just sell people our shit right out the bat, and it doesn't matter. We don't need all these tactics, but it's definitely advanced. But qualification, and I'm going to use my cheat sheet here over to the side, but it's really just determining whether or not the prospect meets the minimum criteria to justify deeper engagement. And I always like to tell it from the A's perspective, it's protecting your time. Because the market comes at you in different stages, and 50% of people just aren't buyers at the time that you're going to be talking to them.
Yeah.
20 to 30% or so, even a little bit higher, are going to be window shoppers lurking. They're on the famous good enough line of IT, or they need an event to happen, or they need to be persuaded or moved. And then you have about 10% of the market that's in a buying window. And so we want to qualify and make sure that we're talking to the right people and this conversation makes sense. So we're not just chasing people around and trying to force next steps. That's when sales resistance rises. That's when people get pushed away. So we want to do a really good job at qualifying to make sure this conversation is worth it. Now, discovery.
Can I make one comment on the qualification real quick before we move to discovery?
Please. Absolutely.
This right here is how I know most companies are not doing good qualification. Is I will have, this is crazy, it happens all the time, which still blows my mind. Like I'll have somebody introduce me to like they're referring me on an email or whatever, and then the person they're referring, or even if somebody's just reaching out cold, they'll just be like, hey Tar, book a call on my calendar, book an hour call on my calendar for whatever day. And I'm like, this is wild that you think I can know nothing about you, nothing about your MSP, nothing about your sales goals, nothing about your marketing goals, nothing about anything. And I'm just going to be like, yeah, I'm going to give you an hour of my time where me and you might not be a good fit. Like, I'd rather just tell you like, hey, these are how we do things. Like, give me some stuff. So I'll usually reply and be like, hey, what are you doing for marketing right now? Like, what are you even interested in? Like, we do a lot of stuff. Like, are you interested in membership? Like, what is it? Like, give me some context. Otherwise, we're going to waste a bunch of time on the call and it might not even be a good fit.
Yeah. And what you just said is such a great tactic on framing and pushing too. So people, if you chase everybody, you get no one. If you put that little stiff arm out and be like, hey, well, hold up. Like, we don't just take on anybody. I really want to make sure this is a fit for the both of us, both for your company and your goals, for us and what we're trying to do and the people that we like to partner with. So I need to ask you a few more questions before we even get to that point of having a conversation, see if it makes sense. That subconsciously, psychology wise too, is one of the biggest missing superpowers in sales right now, is willingness to not chase everything, to walk away and to kind of give that stiff arm and say, we don't just take on anybody. And that's one of the biggest things I see with MSPs too.
So spot on. And then on the flip side, we're redoing our backyard. So long story short, we moved out of our house into a 1,200 square foot apartment because we were going to sell the house. We ended up fixing up the house, fell back in love. We just moved back in last week. So I'm like, all right,
congrats.
I'm like, we've committed back to this house. Right. And so now I'm like, well, I'm going to make it dope then. So we're going to do this crazy backyard. Like we're going to get like putting for Torn because he's obsessed with putt and golf. We're going to do like all this crazy stuff. And so like I got referred to like the company that is doing it. And she's like, hey, I'm happy to come out and come on site and like do all this stuff for you. And I'm like, hey, can I just send you a 4-minute video of what I want? Like, let me just send you this video. Like I did a whole walk around. Can I just send this to you? And like, you watch it and just make sure I'm qualified for what you do. Like I'm doing her job for her. I'm like,
right.
I don't want to, this would be
salesperson's dream.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, you're 30 minutes away from me. You're going to drive to me. You're going to be here for an hour. You're going to drive back. What if the project I want isn't even what you do? So like, and maybe she's a newer salesperson, but I'm like, that's crazy. You're not going to ask me any questions, you know, like you're not going to, so I sent her the video and we're moving forward. But you know, it's like on the flip side, it's like, come on, this is a waste of time.
Even think about it from, and this is another thing that I'm always training and talking with people about. Oh, they invited me on site. I'm like, it's an hour and a half away and you have no idea where they currently are. Don't go. That's a 3-hour round trip. That is wasting 3/8, quick math, sales guy, not a math guy, 3/8 of your day. And so it's like, why
Yeah.
would you make that trip? So you have 3 hours of driving, you have an hour, maybe 2 on site, you take them out to lunch, you get back, it's a 6-hour day, and you have
Yeah.
no qualification. And maybe it works out, maybe, but typically, what's gonna end up happening? The same stuff that we always hear, like
Yeah.
we're decided to move in a different direction, or most deals go to die. We just decided to stay with our current vendor. All
Yeah.
because you didn't ask questions at the beginning that would have told you the answers to the test far ahead. You would have saved, excuse me, so much of your time.
Yeah.
And so just asking those questions up front, and to the example of you building a mini putt area in your backyard, which I better be getting an invitation for because I love golf.
Yeah,
We're
come
gonna have to
on.
make that happen. We'll stream it. MSP Camp mini golf tournament. Just
Yeah.
get everybody out there.
Next is an MSP camp. Golf gets real heated. We're like yelling at each other. Like
I
it's
try to take you down. You do jujitsu, choke me out live on stream. It'd be awesome. Just my career
totally would.
tanks. Yeah.
Like we like Steven, but he sucks at jujitsu.
He's really bad at fighting, like abnormally bad at defending himself.
He squealed the whole time.
Yeah.
All right, so that makes sense on the qualification.
Yes.
Thank you. What a concise way of putting it. But then it's like, as you mentioned, discovery might be a little bit more nuanced, and it's like constant. Whereas qualification is kind of like, is this right or not? And then so kind of explain discovery a little bit.
Well, discovery, and again, I'm going to peek over to my cheat sheet here, but it's really just the process of deeply exploring the prospect's current state, challenges, and the outcomes that they're looking to uncover, and the reasons why they would be considering change in the first place. And so I always like to give the example of response times. It's such an easy one because everyone's always like, I have bad response times.
Yeah.
A really average or below average rep might go, oh wow, you have response times. Well, we could absolutely help with that, and we do a lot of things to help and mitigate against slow response times. What else do you have going on? Response times, newsflash everybody, are not the reason that they're talking to you. They're talking because those response times, or it's your job to find out whether or not those response times lead to something worse within their business. And so a good rep, or somebody who's learning and just committed to mastering and doing all the things that they're trying to become a better salesperson, might go, oh, response times, little mirror. And then they go, well, yeah, so we've just had a really, really bad time with them getting back to us. And we just feel like tickets are being left open and we just don't hear from them. Oh, geez, that sounds really frustrating. How often is this happening? Few times a week. I would say 3, 4, and then they start to go into the story. And you start to ask questions, and we call it the XYZ funnel, which is just Sandler calls it a pain funnel. Everybody has their own name for it, but it's really just X is your symptom. There's something going on, but it's surface level. Response times, communication issues, all the things that we typically hear about. Maybe there's cybersecurity sprinkled in there somewhere, but going to the why is, how does that affect you and your team? And then Z is, how does that affect the company? And so we want to figure out, how do we make this personal to the person we're talking to? And how do we relate this to a bigger business problem? Because that's what's important. And so discovery is really figuring out where they are and where they want to be, really building the gap, to use a traditional term, between right now and the future state. And guiding them through that process. And with discovery, I'm going to jump ahead here real quick, but the biggest mistake that people make with discovery is they try to manufacture. Discovery is about me and you right now. It would be, I'm here to discover whether or not you have problems in a business case for IT and what we do. And I'm also trying to help you, not tell you, but help you, Tahir, discover, do you have problems? That's the job of a sales rep. I'm not here to tell you like, "Ooh, Tahir, that's a problem." I want you to go, "Oh, that's a problem." That's the difference between a high-level sales rep and somebody who just, we'll say, dabbles or just kind of does it part-time or hasn't really taken that next step in their career.
Yeah. That's spot on. It's such a good way to put it. I think everyone should just kind of sit on that for a moment, because I think a lot of salespeople do that.
And it's difficult because it's against a lot of the human nature. I always use the example, and a lot of guys relate to this, but for me, I've been in a long-term relationship. Tyler, you're married. It's
Mhm.
somebody, your wife, your spouse, or your significant other comes to you and goes, I have a problem. What do I typically, I fall into this trap all the time. I go, okay, let's fix it with A, B, C, D. And it's
Mhm.
like we immediately jump to diagnose, but it's not really diagnosing. It's letting them know that you hear the problem that they're having.
Yeah.
And so it's not always about telling somebody, here's the solution. It's about validating the things that they're going through. And
Yeah.
so you want to make sure that you're validating that all the things that they're talking about, you hear, you understand, you expand on, you find out why it's important. You just turn over all the different stones. So at the end of a sales process, you have the answers to the test. The
Yeah.
presentation is answered. You have all the stuff that needs to be in there. And now you're
Yeah.
not guessing and mapping and reaching and stretching, and then things become gimmicky because you're trying to sell as
Yeah.
opposed to being the consultant in the other seat.
Dude, that's gold. Literally last night, because Lindsay wanted to talk to me about, a big move on whether, with talent school. And I know I've not been doing a great job of what you just said. That's so funny that sales is throughout everything. So is marketing. But she's
Yeah.
like, I don't want you to say anything until I've kind of listed it all out. I don't want any solutions yet.
Right.
She's like, let me just lay it all out. And she's like, and then like, let me eat. Like, because we were going to eat. She's like, well, I'm going to lay it out in the car ride. She's like, we're going to eat together and then we'll talk about it. Like she framed it for me because she
Yeah.
knows, unfortunately, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, I'm too quick to be like, I know the solution to this.
Yeah.
You're right. If I took that more kind of almost consultative sales approach with my wife, we'd probably be able to have a little more better discussion on like, we have a really good communication style, like
Sure.
really well, but it's like on these harder things that she's really passionate about. She's like, I don't want your solution yet. That's
Mhm.
gold, dude. The other thing is with my kid, Talon, he's 6 now, and I'm making him sell more.
Mhm.
Cause I'm like, listen, you keep saying you want this thing, or you want to skip homework tonight. You want to do it in the morning, like whatever it is. Like you keep telling me you want this. I was like, but I don't agree with you. I think we need to do this now, or like whatever. I was like, but the power of words is insane. Words are so powerful. Words have created movements. They've created wars. This
Yeah.
podcast is words that have helped create a business. Words are powerful. And so I tell them, like, the words you can say are powerful. So if you can convince me of what you want, you are so much more likely to get it than to pout or to just keep repeating the same thing. And
Yeah.
so now, as he approaches conversations with me, he'll kind of approach it from my perspective. He's like, if I promise that I can get my homework done tomorrow and I get, good grades tomorrow, which is going to help, like, could I skip homework today? And then I'll get pushback. I'll be like, well, I don't know. I think, like, are you sure you're gonna get in the morning? Like, you don't usually wake up early. And he's like, you can wake me up early and more. Like, he just thinks of it more from my perspective now.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, even for a 6-year-old, sales is key.
Well, even now
Like,
tell him take the next step and be like, Dad, if I do it in the morning, I can spend more time with you and mom. I can spend more time with the like now talk about outcome and impact, elevate that conversation, and he's gonna be
yeah,
cashing the next day homework commission checks.
totally. Yeah.
That's funny though. That's it's such a valuable skill. And you just said words are powerful. And not only the words are powerful, but the way that you say them is what's
Yes.
powerful and gives them power.
Yes.
And so if you ever look at great speakers just throughout history, and you
Mhm.
could just Google top 10 speakers of all time, listen to the words and the way that they speak. It's incredible. The way that they move people, energize people, motivate people. And to bring this back to a sales conversation, to be able to sound curious, to be able
Mhm.
to sound confident, calm, to do all of these things in conversation is what gives a lot of depth to your process. And
Yeah.
so I could sit here and be like, Tahir, that sounds really frustrating. Tell me a little bit more about that. It doesn't
Mhm.
move the needle. It's just
Yeah.
you're literally, it looked like you're about to pass out as I was saying it. It's like, okay, cool. Like that doesn't, what if you're like, oh man, Tahir, that sounds really frustrating. I'm sure that's not your favorite part of your day. Do you mind giving me an example of what that typically looks like?
Yeah.
And now there's a little bit of depth to it, and they can actually reciprocate, because a
Mhm.
lot of times people get these one word short answers and like, discovery is useless, or I'm bad at it, or it's just not working for my industry, or I just don't know how. And it's because you're saying things so flat. You're saying
Yeah.
things like you're reading a script, and you're saying
Yeah.
it just like you're getting your questions off, that they're just responding like they respond to every other salesperson.
Yeah.
And so, to what you said, it's spot on. Words are so powerful, but even more importantly, it's how you say things that move the needle.
Totally. 100%. That's such a good point. I'm going to mention that to him in our next lesson.
Yeah, just if he needs to sit down and any sales advice, I got him. I can. I think I could train 6-year-olds. I think that.
Probably a great example. I got a lot of questions, but
fire away.
I think obviously there's the question we have to ask just so people understand the why. It's like, how does poor qualification and discovery affect delivery team later on?
As far as handing them over to the ops team?
Yeah, like if they don't do a good job of this, the salesperson doesn't do a good job of this, and the client, obviously wasn't a fit, or whatever it might be. What are the downstream effects of doing this poorly?
That's a good question. I would say the obvious answer is you lose the deal. You miss something. And it's usually around timing or authority. Am I talking to the right person, or have I mapped out this timeline according to their schedule? And I'm not saying you should always be like, oh, call me in 6 months. Okay, I'll call you in 6 months. Well, I'm not saying always kick the can down the road. But for example, a very simple question, I already used this example, but asking at the very beginning, like, when would you ideally like to go live? Is there any contractual obligations we need to stick to? Is there any expiration? Are you on month to month? Just asking that simple question. They might go, oh, we're month to month right now. Okay, so no timeline? No. All right, well, is there an ideal time that you'd like to be cut over from your current provider? And if they say no, it's like, okay, well, we have a little bit of an eyebrow raise now. Like there's no urgency there. So we either need to create it or get them to that point where they want to move forward.
Yeah.
And so the obvious answer is it just leads to no deal, and there's going to be a surprise, a dark horse at the end of the sales process where they say we're going to move in a different direction, or they're not going to move at all. A little bit more dark answer is if they're not a fit, they're not an ICP, and you're just really good at selling, and you hand them over to your operations team.
Yeah.
It just might be a bad relationship. And so, for example, say you talk to an accounting firm and things go great. You kick ass on the personal connection side and the professional connection side, and you just walk them through and it's great, it's perfect, and they sign off, and then you hand them over to operations and they don't know how to use, or they have no familiarity with the application that you just brought in-house, or they have no idea the workflow of an accounting firm. And for us, who's highly healthcare oriented and towns and municipality oriented and nonprofit oriented, maybe we're not going to be able to support them very well, and that might be a quick turnaround. Maybe they're in and out in a year. And so then churn increases. So there's the longer term, like churn and just bad fit in general, and then there's the short term where your close rate is just decreased because you're not asking the right questions top of funnel.
That's gold. How important is it? I think everybody that's ever done any amount of sales here is like, you got to get the decision maker in the process. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just asking, how important is that in the MSP space, making sure the decision maker is actually in the meeting? And then two, how, so step one is like, how important is that really to MSPs? And then step two is, okay, well, how do we get the decision maker in the room or on the call or through the process if they're not currently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have a little bit of a mixed answer here, because when you're talking, for example, to healthcare companies, the odds that I'm going to be getting a doctor in Massachusetts on an IT call is almost next to none. It does happen. I'm not saying it's not going to, but it's not something that I sell through. I like to create my influencer, my champion, but I also want that person to know that they're talking to me. So there's a couple things that you can do. One thing that we started doing that I really like is a C-level intro. So you're owner of the MSP or the company, whatever, and you're selling to, let's say, a healthcare company or an accounting firm, for the example we just used. Your CEO and owner shooting a direct message over to their CEO and owner, just saying, hey, we're in the process of talking about possibly becoming your IT provider. Just wanted to put it on your radar. If there's any questions, CEO to CEO, just let me know. I'd be happy to answer. It's just a subtle little nudge, puts it on their radar. They know they're talking to somebody. You can ask the person. So I can be like, hey, Tyler, do you mind if my CEO, Joe, just shoots a message to your CEO just to let them know that we're talking and discussing IT? Or I would say something like, Tyler, I'm sure you have a decision-making process on your end. Do you mind walking me through how IT decisions are typically made over there.
That's good.
Because then they're just going to start talking and telling you and mapping. And again, if they go, why is that important? That's not important. I don't want to talk to you about that. Raise your eyebrow. Why are you here? What are you really after? This seems like we're not on the same page. You're at a different stage right now. Whereas if they go, oh, well, it has to go through Becky and John, and then us three get together and we sit down and blah, 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 whatever. Like, okay, well, are Becky and John going to be a part of this conversation at all? Or are you bringing everything to Becky and John and then you're going to have that conversation? No, I'm going to bring it to them. Any chance that we can all have a conversation before, just so I understand what's important to them and so I can wrap it into what's important to you and everybody can get what they want out of this? So I'm going to try and tunnel into it. Sometimes they hard shut down. Then you can just ask, okay, Becky or whoever, do you mind me asking what's important to them as far as the decision?
Yeah.
The decision or the whatever to decide. How would you say that? What's important to them to make this decision? So then you can cater, you can build your proposal, and you can go a little bit deeper as to why they're here in the first place and the problems that they do have. So there's a few different ways to build into their buying committee, so to speak, but it just depends contextually on the situation. But those are the different ways that I would do it.
There's been, some people, like, I just hear where it's like, I'm glad you answered that way because I agree completely. Some people are like, you have to get the decision maker, or don't even talk to anybody, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, that is complete based on years and years of experience in sales. That's bullshit. Like, there are so many times I've been conversations where I've closed some of the largest deals, and it's like, they have a CIO that's making the decision, or they have an operations director that's making, or not, they're not making the decision, but like they're vetting before they get back to decision maker. I'm a small company. We're just now coming up on 2 million, and I have my people on the demos, not me. It's like, don't even bring it to me until it's like, it's going to make your work better. So like larger, it's like, that's it. Yeah, we can't always have the decision makers on the call. Two things recently that, also, ways around this or to think about it. I had someone reach out. They were looking at having the full like inbound package we do. It's $3,000 a month. It's, not an easy sell typically. I mean, it typically is because people are consuming enough content to kind of be qualified before they reach out. But it was interesting because the person that reached out had only been at the company for 4 months. And they're the ones kind of driving the discussion. They're the ones that Maddie had been on the call with and everything. I was like, ooh, this is, not ideal. So when they reached out, when they replied, I saw they copied the CEO because the CEO is at least in conversation. So when I replied because now they're qualified, they're a deal I do want to close. Maddie qualified them. And I was like, okay, this is good. When I sent the invite, I just included the CEO too, even though like Niad's the one reaching out or whatever. I probably shouldn't have dropped the name there, but anyway.
Just bleep it out.
I don't do any editing, so sorry, Niad. But I copied the CEO in it, and so that way, in the call, the CEO showed up too, and they were both really great, and they had this whole conversation. Then I replied, and then like a few weeks later, it did close, and it's like, okay, cool. So that's an example of somebody who was driving the process that wasn't the decision maker. I was able to tie the decision maker in, but that champion was still the one that kind of got the deal closed. On the second hand, recently I had a ops director that was vetting a ton of different companies, and she has a really strict and defined process of how she vets them, which is great. And so when I reply, she's like, okay, how I'm doing everything is I'm going to reply, make sure you reply with kind of what we talked about, bullet points, blah, blah, blah. I could have just sent the Fireflies AI overview and like copy paste and boom. But instead what I did is I did that. And then I just shot a 10-minute Loom video, just not tearing apart. It was actually pretty constructive in a very positive way of things I would change, opportunities for improvement. Like these are the things I know you're struggling with because you told me that.
These are exactly case.
Yeah. It's like, this is exactly how we would kind of approach it. And so now I'm probably the only salesperson that did that. And I'm going to stand. I don't know if I'm going to close the deal or not, but I know it's like, hey, you know what? I wasn't able to talk to the decision maker. She's going to relay everything we talked about in this hour-long call to the decision maker. I'd rather be exactly what I said. Like, I'd rather be exactly what I want to say. And here's the video. Like, he'll probably watch a 10-minute video, like no biggie. He's not going to jump on an hour-long call, but like a 10-minute video where it's like, hey, I'm going to lay it all out in an easy way. Now I have the differentiator around the other people, because again, they were qualified. And the discovery was that hour-long call, which really gave me everything I needed to kind of kill it on that video.
And videos is such a powerful way to tunnel into different people at a company too. It's like, I'm not going to get a chance to talk to the person that ultimately signs it, but I can shoot a 5-minute video going over my proposal and how it ties to their specific business case that I learned throughout the sales process. And I can send that to you. I can send that to you personally with our influencer, I can send that to everybody. And then it's, hey, I know. And then again, frame it as, hey, I know you have 10 million things to do. So I shot this video for you, so you don't have to hop on an hour call with me.
Yeah.
Now it's, what are you already doing? Especially as an MSP, people forget that we're a service provider. So I'm going to go on a little rant here, but people will say like, protect your time. Don't respond fast to emails. Know your value. Know your worth. Sometimes in sales, yes. But for the most part, you're a service provider, a managed service provider, and people are coming to you with the problem of response times.
Yeah.
Don't think that they want, and you are not reflecting as the sales rep representing your MSP, the initial feeling of, is this person going to respond fast to me? I guess there's no way of knowing, but subconsciously there has to be that tie. And so I've always, again, it's one of those things where it's like, get to the people you need to get to, like you said, video, all these different ways, tunnel in. But anytime when someone says absolutes, like you need to talk to the decision maker, or you need to do this, or you have to do that. What's the, I'm going to go dork here. The only sit, steal, and absolutes, the Star Wars line. It's like only, there's nothing that's absolute in sales. There's no 100% tactic of you have to do this. You have to ask that question. You have to say this at this time. That's not how this works. And sales isn't this front to back linear process that is the same every single time. And so be adaptable. And if you hear somebody say something as silly as, I'm not going to sell unless the decision maker is there and present, you're just talking to a rep who is drastically reducing the amount of deals that he has the ability to close.
100%.
And that's silly. Yeah.
Because if the qualification's there and discovery's there, we'll get to decision maker.
I'll get there.
We'll get there as long as the liaison has power, Now, if it's an intern, I'm probably not taking the call, but I mean, obviously there's, there's discretion here. Although my title on LinkedIn is intern. So, and
I did see that.
It worked great. No cold calls, no cold emails. None.
You have the best. I just make pretty pictures for MSPs. It's like the most simplistic, best tagline on LinkedIn. I love it.
I create pretty pictures that make people money. That's it. That's
all. It's so good. And I
even does that, but
no one needs to know that. Just take the credit. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Man, this is some good stuff. I'm loving this. There's a ton of questions. So is there anything I have a few more here.
Fire away.
Is there anything you want us to cover before I keep going into some of the questions I have?
No, I mean, I could talk about anything, man. I love talking sales. So
how do you handle, and this is something I struggle with a little bit. Not anymore. I don't think I struggle with this anymore, but I struggled with it for most of my career. And it's like, how do you handle prospect that's clearly a bad fit? Like, there's red flags, but they're ready to buy right now, and like they have the budget and they would bring money in right away. Like,
what are the red flags? That's such a
a couple things is like they're just talking really bad about the other IT company, like just bashing the other MSP that they're moving from, and like you start asking them questions and like, oh wait, that sounds like that was a you thing. Those prospects where it's like, man, you're really going hard on your current provider, and those things that you said, I don't think that deserves that level of reactions. Oftentimes, like there's the emotional bad fit that I've seen.
Sure.
There's also
the person in the seat. It's like you're kind of giving me that red flag feel of something's going on here, and it might be you.
Yeah. The other thing is I always hit my numbers. Like I was obsessed with hitting my numbers. So sometimes it's like, man, it's 2,000 MRR, and that would get me over my quota. And I know that they've kind of want these discounts, or they're trying not to get the onboarding, or like they're already showing me they're pretty damn cheap. And I've already provided a credit, like just things like that, where it's like, man, I don't, you have that gut feeling where you're like, this is probably not a good thing, but they want to give me money.
Well, it's a little bit of context. So for example, if you're in abundance with deals, then I would just buy.
Yeah.
But what happens where most people are at in the MSP space, where maybe you have one or two open deals and this is your third one, and this one looks like it's going to close and you're not sure about the others. How do you deal with that? That's tougher. But I really like to, everybody has a relationship they previously had with their provider, or they have a history that we are just not filled in on. Calling it out is never a bad thing, or asking a clarifier to be like, hey, we're talking a lot about the negative here, Taher. There's got to be a point where they did some stuff right. Do you mind talking to me about some of the stuff that they've done well for you over the years, just so we can make sure we're mimicking the same things that you found success in? Now, if they can't answer a single positive thing about them, then yeah, you're probably talking to a toxic customer, and I would just at that point steer clear. But if they walk it back and it's like, well, no, let me explain. Yes, they've done stuff right and blah, 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 whatever those things are. And it's just an emotional, like a visceral reaction to, I'm upset and I need to be heard. Then I can get by that, and I can understand their perspective as, humans are emotional, and they have a business, and this is disrupting their business. So I can get that. But if it's, they suck, we're awesome, we've never done anything wrong, they're the worst, I would do one of two things. If you don't have the power to just say no on your own, meaning that you're working for somebody and your job is to bring in MRR, I would just go ask the owner or the person that you work for at the MSP and be like, hey, I have this person here. They feel like, from my gut, that this is going to be more of a headache than it is going to be helpful. This is some of the things they've said that are making me think that. What do you want me to do, or what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we don't want to bring in bad customers that are just going to just ruin the feel of your help desk or your technical team or your client success team or your project man. You just don't want those people coming in and just bringing all of that baggage to them. And so you need to be careful with who you bring on board. If you do see red flags, I would say identify them early. There's typically, you figure out if it's a company thing or a person thing too, because if it's one bad egg at a 50-person company and it's like $6,000 worth of MRR, then we can navigate that. Whereas if it's a company culture thing, like everyone's like, the owner jumps out, it's like, oh no, they're terrible, we're great, it's the same thing, then maybe we need to either reframe or just walk away.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
your emotional intelligence in answering the question, especially of the like, well, what have they done right so we can mimic that? Like the fact that you said that on the spot with an example just shows your level of in tune with the person. I know this is really lame, but I literally got the chills. Maybe I'm getting sick. I'm going to give you credit though.
I'm actually getting sick, but I'm going to give you credit for it.
Like I was like, bro, that's so on point, because now again, you're framing yourself as you're not the regular salesperson. You're not just going, oh, totally, we would fix all that shit. Like it's not, you're like, but what are the positives so we can make sure we don't want you to lose anything. We only want you to gain through this partnership. So can you tell me some of the positives? I'm sure they've done some good because you've been with them for 4 years, right? Like framing yourself as not the typical salesperson, and then getting some good stuff and further qualifying, like, is this person just an asshole or not? That's gold.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a 10,000-foot perspective, sales is about humans, especially when you're in the SMB mid space. It's a lot more who's the person that you're talking to.
Yeah.
And humans are, even as logical as we are emotional beings through and through. And so the example I always like to give, because it's so true to how we filter information, you're never logic. Your first thought is never logic. Your brain just tricks you into thinking it is. And so your first part of your brain's reptilian, fight or flight. You've got your midbrain, mammalian brain, a couple different names, but it's social and it's like making sense of things. And then your prefrontal cortex, which is logic, analytical decision making. And so, for example, say I was walking around a couple of weeks ago around my, I get there early to my barber because I want to be the first one in the chair. So I just walk around so I can get back from my morning calls and whatever. And so I'm walking and I just hear a guy go, hey, and immediately my head turns, and fight or flight, reptilian. And then I looked and I see guy yelling, and he's yelling in that direction. And there's another guy, mammalian, social, making sense. And then your logic brain goes, oh, they're friends. He's just saying hi to his friend. So my initial was, whoa, makes sense. And then, oh, got it, logic. But if you're not aware of that scanning, and all decisions are made in that order throughout the human brain, there's no bypassing that. They think that because we came to a logical conclusion that the decision was logical, but it's emotional. And then it's justified with logic at the end. the same thing is present with sales and people's emotions. So I personally, a big downfall I had was not understanding their side. I was always about sales process and me and getting what I wanted. And so the compliment you just gave me is really years of focusing day to day on practicing, like, am I actually listening to what they're saying? Do I actually get their problems? And am I making sure that I'm seeing it through their lens, not just mine? That's when a lot of things started to click as well, is that buyer psychology side of things.
Could you give an example? Because I love the example you just gave of like someone calling out. Can you give an example of how this might work, like in an actual MSP sales meeting for additional context? Like maybe, I'm trying to think.
Like an example of how it filters through the brain, essentially.
Yeah, like in a sales meeting, like something someone might say, or how you would say something to make sure it goes down the right path, kind of thing.
So yeah, so as far as we're selling to the reptilian brain, it scans. It's actually pretty lazy part of the brain. It's the most prehistoric. It's old, and it's just one of those things that is simply there for fight or flight. So there's a rustle in the bush, and your head turns because X amount of years ago, we just wanted to make sure that wasn't an animal or a poisonous snake. And so that thing is still there in our mind. It's just adapted. And so, for example, if I sit here and I go, or Tahir, you're the person who goes, hey, Steve, why should I go with your MSP? If I go, well, Tahir, that's a really good question. We have the best techs, and we're really a single source for problems. And every time people come to us, they leave in a better spot, or they're here in a great spot, and they say all this stuff. Naturally, what they're going to say is, "Oop, red flag." That's just every other person's answer. Every single person has the best text, the best response times. And so now what happened? The reptilian brain flags you and says, what? Sales pressure. I don't like this person. You sound like every single person I've ever talked to. But if you go, Steve, why should I go with you? That's a good question, Tahir. I'm not really sure yet. I don't know if you should go with us quite yet. And the reason I say that is I need to learn a lot more about your business and what the ultimate goal of your business is, whether you're growing, whether you're staying where you are, downsizing. What I need to know these things to be able to make sure that our service and what we do best, managed services, fits what you're actually trying to do. So do you mind if I ask you a few more questions, and we can figure that out after I throw a few more your way?
Yeah.
That is a pattern interrupt. That's different than what most people say. I didn't even sell. I actually said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, contextually, don't do that at like the end of you're on your fifth meeting proposing to someone. Don't be like, well, actually, I don't know if we should. Now it's like, well, why are you proposing? That would be weird. And that's anything can be gimmicky if you do it at the wrong time. But if you do that at the very first meeting where you really don't know and there's really not enough context, you are now one person who said that, and there's 5 other ones right here that were like, we have the best, or we can fix, or whatever. They're diagnosing immediately. This person, arm's length, and qualifying and discovering further.
God, that is gold. That is such a good specific example for everyone listening now can go, okay, got it. And that's why everyone goes into like, don't sell features, sell outcomes. It's like, okay, but to get to the outcomes, we got to really listen. We got to really get to that reptilian brain of getting them emotional about opening up. And like I've said many times in the podcast and in my presentation at ScaleCon, like as owners, decision makers, even managers in a lot of cases, director of ops, whatever, like this is our baby. My business is I love my kids more than any. I literally teared up on stage because it's been 4 days since I saw them. Like that's how much I love my kids, right? Like, and my business is like almost another child. And if somebody asks me about Talon or Torrent or Truett, I'm going to tell them everything. I'm going to tell them everything. Like, tell me, like, and no matter how many questions you ask, I will answer them in full emotional engagement and excitement. If you ask me about my business, I'm going to do the same exact thing. This is where we're going. Number 12 of our camp pledges is I will not sell help desk, but instead use the prospects' challenges and pain points to vision build a better life for themselves and their organization.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, if I had to teach sales with 1 point, everything I ever did in sales with 1 point, it's that. Like, don't sell help desk and tools and all that shit. Sell like, where's the decision maker going?
Yeah.
And get all of that, and why what they're dealing with their current IT is preventing them from doing that. Why what you can do can help them fulfill that vision. And there is no price objection. I've spent a ridiculous amount of money in the 2 years I've been in, but less than 2 years I've been in business, trying to continue to fulfill my vision because somebody got on board with it. So man, that is such a good example.
What you just said, like you want to elevate conversation and sell on outcome and impact. It's so true. And it's a small example of how you can do that, but conversation elevation is one of the most important things in sales, because you move from one of 1,000. Like, I could throw a rock next to my house and I could probably hit 3 MSPs nowadays. There's so many, and we're commoditized. It's very, very competitive. And so taking your conversations from I'm one of 100 in my area to you're the only person that answered it that way.
Yeah.
Where does that put you? That puts you at least in the bucket of, I want to talk to this person more. And then you'll be one of 3 or one of 2 in the final selection process.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you just said about ask me about my kids. You're going to get a reaction. One thing that we train on as far as the personal connection goes is FORK, and it's family, occupation, recreation, and knowledge, what you know. And people, if you ask about any of those things, it's like, tell me more. I want to tell you about my kids. I want to tell you about the things that I know about.
Yeah.
And so it's just a great way to open people up as well. But no, to what you're saying,
that's so true.
Yeah.
So true.
It's just, and so it's funny because you'll have a rep that comes in and we're training on stuff, and it's like they're a killer and they're great with sales, but they don't get the personal side, or they're great people's person, but they just don't fully understand the professional side. And so as a coach and a trainer, you have to unpack those things and be like, okay, well, how do I teach someone to be social and to get small talk and to open people up and to chit chat? And so FORK was one of those things that we came up with, and that I probably found somewhere, but it's amazing. And use it next time. Anybody listening, if you ever want to open somebody up, you're sitting in their office, you're having a meeting or whatever, you see a picture of their kids, be like, oh, it looks like you got a couple kids there. Just watch that conversation open up. People love talking about those types of things. So and then knowing that you can leverage that to open people up and build connections. And so just another little tool of the trade.
Yeah. And then being genuinely curious, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, that's still one of the greatest books. Oh, it's incredible. And it's like, man, if you can be genuinely interested in their botany, he always gave that example, like just the guy talking for hours about all the botany stuff he was doing, and like how, as long as you're genuinely curious in what they're saying, they're going to like you. People have this thing where we think we have to talk about ourselves for someone to like us, but it's the opposite. Absolutely. So the more you get them talking about themselves, the more and you're genuinely curious, not just checkboxing, the more they're like, I genuinely like this person. So if you're genuinely curious and you're authentically interested in what these people are saying, because you've either taught yourself to care, really, or you're genuinely curious, it's just natural. It's going to serve so well.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I didn't have. I was just had another question. So, do you have anything else on that?
Oh, I kind of lost my train of thought there from the pattern.
Shit, my
bad. And I was like, I lost it. So it's gone, man. It's gone.
Well, now I don't know what question I was going to ask. So now we're in a stalemate.
Now we're just going to sit in awkward silence for 45 seconds. Everybody listen.
You can ask me about FORK. I can talk about jujitsu all day, bro.
That's what I mean. It's like you start to ask somebody, oh, this is what I was going to say. It came back to me. One of the best indicators that you ran a really good discovery call is towards the end. If someone looks at you and goes, well, do you mind if I ask you? I haven't even asked you a question about you. I know nothing about you guys. That is a great indicator that you were asking questions, you were being conversational, you weren't just reading like a script, but you're actually engaging and nurturing the conversation, if that makes sense. And at the end, they're almost like we're in a trance and they forgot that this was a sales call and that they need to learn about the company that they're talking to. That is such a good indicator that you're doing really good discovery, is that they forget it is a list of questions.
100%. And then key point on this is where I think a lot of people miss, and we got to do good at this, is all of that data, everything that has been discovered, every nuances, the kids, all the things has to go somewhere.
Yes.
Because
AI fireflies.
Again, yes.
Sorry, I was gonna say AI is all my regular notes, my journal notes that I'm writing here is all personal. It's a profile. So I don't even focus on the tech. I remember the technical and it all goes in Firefly, so I have it. but everything personal, your kids, the schools they go to, what car, if you told me, whatever, I'm putting that in my notes so I have a profile on that person.
And then going into the CRM, like, so it's like, okay, this person calls me 6 months from now. Like, I know everything about that conversation. I'm not restarting. Maybe I'm updating, but man, there's been so many times where I'll follow up with a prospect about something really, really specific that they mentioned. Like, for instance, I use this example a lot, but we closed the deal, a transportation company, and I've been following them for a year and a half, and I just remember they didn't, their Microsoft 365 licenses were a mess. And there was a lot of challenges, but they didn't know where it was procured and whatever it was. And NCE was coming up, so I just followed up with the decision maker. I was like, "Hey, this is coming up. It's going to bump up your Microsoft 365, probably about 20% or whatever it was." I sent a whole infographic, and I was like, "I know you already didn't have a good source for understanding those things and how much it's going to cost you and what we could probably clean up right now." So I don't know if your IT provider has said anything about this. But in case they haven't, here's these resources. And then he just said, no, they haven't said a single thing, just like I was expecting, just like we talked about. Let's set the meeting. And I closed it that day. Because it's like, man, when you can bring back that stuff, the goal that they mentioned, the pains that they mentioned, and then there's something that has occurred that's created urgency to like hit back on that point, it closes deals quick.
It does. And that's a timing thing right there. Like that's just timing 101. You said the thing that was probably going to happen. He goes, yep, it didn't happen. They didn't check in.
Exactly.
The amount of Windows 10 end of life conversations that I'm having because we're coming up on that deadline and people are like, oh shit, we didn't have those conversations is it's opening the door, and it just needs to creak open a little bit. And then you can, once you get them to that first time call, you can really dive into the details and people will be more open to share.
Exactly. That's gold, man. Well, as we wrap up, I did want to just, this has been gold. This has been super helpful. I'm super excited for everything you're doing, everything you're learning, getting you on the podcast. Steven's been joining the fireside chats too, which has been cool. Can you tell people, listeners, a little bit about Nexus Sales Group, what you're planning on doing with it, where you're at?
Absolutely.
I know there's been a lot of questions from our members around sales discovery and qualification. One reason we did this, and needing coaching on it and whatever. And it's like, I'm not even pretend that I'm the best at this. So why would I try and build it in house when I could just have someone like Steve help out? So can you talk about what you're doing?
Happy to. Absolutely. So Nexus Sales Group, to give you a little bit of background to everybody listening, I've gone through every frustration that a salesperson can go through in MSP sales. Not enough leads. My conversation sucked. The way that I was saying things, I was the same person like that everybody was talking to. We had no structure and process. And so we're building this thing, Nexus Sales Group, and the mission is to develop the next generation, the best MSP sales reps. So it's a MSP specific sales coaching, consulting, appointment setting as a service. And then there's a little bit of a self-service module as well that is really aimed at making sure that people understand that sales is a skill and we want to develop that skill. And we do that in a lot of different ways. And anybody who's listening, if you're interested, you can talk to me about that. Just hit me up. But really what we are looking to do is one of three things. One, we have that self-service module. So you can have an in-house sales library. So whenever you bring people on board, they have a place to go to reference. We have our coaching and consulting 101 in groups, really to nurture both closers and BDRs. And then we have appointment setting as a service. And just Taher's been a part of a lot of this stuff. He's actually the person that inspired me to do a lot of this. So we've been talking a lot and building this thing over the past few months. And it's really starting to get to that point where we believe turn of the new year, it's going to be 100% live. And I'll be going off my own and diving into this world of coaching, which I just found, I love it. Like I couldn't have landed somewhere better because I have you've pointed to it, but attention to detail, like a type A, just like I love to learn about things I love to learn about. Shocker. And so the fact that I get to continue to learn about this thing that I love, psychology, sales, and dive into it deeper and pass a lot of the things that are going to help people skip years of frustration. I mean, just talk about a fun time. So it's all coming together.
When I heard you coach Jake, and then literally the next week he set that 100 and whatever employee deal, you know, like the week after doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, so many MSPs struggle with maybe having a caller or not having a good calling agency or whatever it is, but not having a caller specifically. And they go, man, this person failed. And it's like, yeah, but did you give them any love? Did you give them any training? Did you give them any structure? Did you give them any tools? Did you give them any opportunities? Did you give them any lists? You didn't do any of that. You gave them a phone and said, good luck. That's going to fail every time. And so like, man, I wish I had you know, just like the reason I built MSP Camp, I wish I had MSP Camp when I was starting marketing.
Yeah.
I also wish when I was hiring telemarketers at Alltech, I wish I had a Steve, right? Or even just have Steve do my calling for me. Like that's why what you're building is so needed, is because I hear from hundreds of members that say we need this. And it's like, I almost wanted to build it myself, but I'm like, I would get distracted. I need to be, there's so much within marketing, especially with AI changing right now. It's like, I have to stay laser focused. So the fact that you're in this and you're doing this makes me so happy. For those that are listening, those that are members or whatever, don't worry. I'm going to keep you well informed of when Steve officially goes live. And, you know, let's one, support him. And two, he's very good at what he does and it's going to help you find success. So really appreciate it, man. Appreciate everything you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's I'm so excited for the next chapter. I'm sprinting towards it. It's just such a fun, it's such a fulfilling thing too. And the Jake example, for somebody to come in and be like, hey, I just set this thing and you trained me like 4 days ago, and people start to see results. And it's just, it's such a fulfilling feeling.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then another thing, it's like in the space, there's so many people who give advice, and I don't know, I'm a little side tangent here, but LinkedIn advice gurus, like oftentimes I read that stuff and I'm just like, this is such bad advice. And there's so much more bad advice than there is good advice. And it kind of annoys me because I used to be the person who was just glued to LinkedIn being like, all right, what's the soup of the day? What's the advice I'm getting? And when I sucked at sales, I was taking these people's word for their advice and I'm trying it and I'm falling flat on my face. So I'm like, could I be a source of good information? And that's why I didn't create a program that was all the way out there with every single industry. Like I know MSP sales.
Yeah,
that is my forte. That is my niche, and that's what I'm going to stick with. And so, so much of the advice that you see out there just isn't applicable to our space because it is a unique space.
Yeah,
and there's 10,000-foot concepts that obviously carry over, but to be able to create something that addresses just a massive missing link in our market, which is just a good sales process. I'm just fired up to be able to pass that along.
It's great, man. It's going to be awesome. I appreciate you taking the time today. It's been super helpful, super fun conversation. It turns out I am getting sick. I feel like crap. So that was not you, or I'm just kidding. That was you earlier with the chills. You killed it that much. You gave me the chills.
Well, now I can go through the rest of my day with no confidence, thanks to her. Awesome, man.
No, I feel amazing. I take my vitamins. Dude, I appreciate you. You're awesome. Looking forward to having you on again soon. And to the listeners, thanks for sticking in the whole time. Hopefully this was valuable, and we'll bring Steven on again very soon. You'll have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.